Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable.
Tulsi Gabbard is sitting in front of a Democrat senator who thinks he's about to corner her with talking points about Russia, Assad, and trusting the intelligence community. Instead, she calmly lays out chapter and verse, how U.S. officials leaned on al-Qaeda-linked sources, how regime change experiments in Iraq, Libya, and Syria opened the door for Islamist extremists, and how Americans were never told the full story. This is World Insight Hub. If you're tired of selective outrage and want straight, constitutional analysis instead of spin, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications. It really helps us keep going. Now watch how Tulsi answers Mark Kelly's question, and in the process makes his entire narrative look shaky at best.
And why you doubted the intelligence community's conclusions in these two cases, Duma and Kanche-Kun, but not the others. And please be specific.
These two cases were being looked at as to be used as a pretext for major military movement, and my fear was a repeat of the deployment of another 500,000 soldiers like we saw in Iraq towards what was the Obama administration's goal, which was regime change in Syria. The question specifically that I raised around these two came about because there were two reasons. One, that assessment was made with high confidence and low information. The information that they had came from those on the ground in an al-Qaeda-controlled area, and therefore were al-Qaeda-linked sources. And there was conflicting information that came from the UN's Office on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons Inspectors, as well as an MIT professor, Ted Postel,
who looked
at these
for a
extensively.
Second. So when Russia was denying Assad's use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
and
not
I
in our
understand,
interests.
and I appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable.
When you step back, the contrast is brutal. In that hearing, Tulsi Gabbard is crystal clear. She isn't defending Assad or Moscow. She's exposing the ugly reality that our own government ran programs arming moderate rebels who were, in practice, fighting alongside al-Qaeda's affiliates. She's saying every American deserves to know if their leaders are funding the very terrorists who killed our citizens on 9/11. That is not Russian propaganda. That's a hard question about accountability. And Mark Kelly? In that moment, he presents himself as the sober guardian of intelligence, warning about foreign narratives. Fast forward, and the same senator is front and center in a slick political video telling service members they can refuse so-called illegal orders. With no illegal order identified, no facts, just vibes and fear. The man who once accused Tulsi of echoing hostile regimes is now, according to critics, flirting with rhetoric that chips away at the chain of command he claims to respect. That's the pattern we keep seeing. Regime change disasters no one wants to own, intelligence failures no one wants to revisit, and then lectures about disinformation whenever someone asks uncomfortable questions. So what do you think? Is Tulsi Gabbard the one undermining America here? Or are politicians like Mark Kelly trying to shut down debate while they rewrite their own record? Drop your thoughts, and any corrections, in the comments below. If you got value from this breakdown, hit like, share it with a friend, and make sure you're subscribed to World Insight Hub so you don't miss what comes next.